Figure we'll get this thing started here. My name is Dan Carracino. I am the chairman of the New Directions for Women Foundation. I want to thank each and every one of you for coming here this morning. I'm a firm believer that individuals can and do make an enormous difference in this world. And just by your being here, you're really helping to support what I think is an extremely important cause and organization. Helping women find sobriety, especially mothers. I know there are a lot of things out in the world that are important, but this is pretty high on the list. You can't have an event like this breakfast without sponsors, so I just wanted to acknowledge some groups and people. If I forget anybody, where's Tanya? Where is Tanya? Okay, Tanya. I ran a company, believe it or not, for like 10 years, and I learned, anytime if you're going to be in a leadership role, if you forget things like forgetting to acknowledge some people, always make sure you know who you're going to blame. So Tanya would be the person if I forget anybody here. That's so. I want to thank the Bush Group, Elmore Toyota. For some reason, whenever I speak publicly, my New York accent just, right? It's terrible. I don't normally sound quite so bad. Father Martin's Ashley, Pacific Coast Recovery Center, Gibson, Dunn and Crutcher, the Shamad Foundation, all the Crescent Butterfly supporters who are listed in the program, and a very special thank you to an anonymous donor who has invested just an enormous amount of money and time and effort in making New Directions what it is. And she has, again, offered an unlimited match of all financial contributions. So if any of you are inclined to write a check for $1 million today, you'll actually be writing a check for $2 million. Not to plant any seeds or anything like that for you. I'd also like to welcome Keith Curry. Where's Keith? This gentleman is the mayor of Newport Beach, and Keith, we thank you very much for being here. We're doubly blessed today because we also have the former mayor of Newport Beach here, Steve Rosansky. And where's Steve? There we go. Thank you again, gentlemen, for coming and for showing your support in the organization. I'd also like to thank my wife, Allison. She's not here with us today, not for any terrible reason. She's in the Bahamas. Makes you wonder, how'd she pull it off, Anyway, my daughter is on spring break, so we had planned this thing a while ago, so I guess she has her priorities in order. But if it wasn't for Allison, about 15 years ago, she brought me to a fundraiser. It was over on the campus at New Directions. It was a summer afternoon. And there was a young mother there holding her child. It was the first time I'd ever been exposed to New Directions and to what it was about. And I didn't know the term then, but I'm sure that she, like many of the women who come to New Directions, was a newcomer. And you'll understand why I'm using that term in a moment. But looking at her and at that child, I thought to myself, yeah, I could get behind something like this. This matters. And that day sort of has taken me on this unexpected journey, especially over the last 10 years. I've made a documentary film about Bill W. You all have a copy of it today. I figured you were a captive audience. I would, get you all a copy. But it was actually very well reviewed. It was well received. It played in theaters for 8 months last year. It's now available on iTunes and Vudu and cable and all that stuff. And we're hoping to get it on PBS. And I can tell you there's worse ways to spend 10 years of your life than studying a man like Bill Wilson. And one of the things that we we came across, we didn't know it when we decided to make this film, I made it with a good friend of mine in New York, is that Bill was recorded like over 100 times in his life. There's almost no visual material of the man, but there's just a boatload of audio. And I thought I'd just share an excerpt of a speech that he gave. For some reason this gets to me, so I hope I'll get through it okay. If you want a copy of this speech, I can email you a copy. I can email you the transcript. I can also email you the actual audio. I would have played that, but it's a little rough. My email address is dan@page124.com. If you don't write that down, no worries. The people at New Directions know how to reach me. But anyway, this is what he had to say. When we think of our newcomers, let us not settle for comfort, for complacency, for mediocrity, because complacency and mediocrity cannot stay still. We must move to greatness in action and spirit, or we deteriorate. I sometimes hear that people will call AA, and obviously there's a drunk in the household, and the poor wife calls up, and over the phone somebody crisply says, "Does he want to stop?" Well, I don't know. It's an awful state down here. Bang! Down goes the receiver. You got to come and get it. A little abrupt, isn't it? Those of us who go to meetings, newcomers come in there. Let us be tender with them. Let us be sure that somebody receives them. Let them feel wanted and needed. Let us think of their comfort, their happiness. It gets to me because he continues in that speech about how many people don't know, and how, I think he says, at that time, and he made this speech in July of 1960, he said the estimate was that 25 million people had died of alcoholism, and the number of people that AA was reaching was 1 in 100. And now that's over 50 years ago. And believe it or not, that number has not moved very much. It's maybe 1.5 out of 100 get reached now. And, a lot of people die of this. It kills a lot of people. So anyway, it just strikes me as a simple statement of how to actually be loving and tolerant to others, which, as a human race, we do intolerance and hatred really well. So it's nice to just have a sort of simple, practical, this is how to treat people. Again, I'd be happy to send it to anybody who wants it. And it's now my pleasure to introduce Devin Martin, who will be leading us in the invocation. Thank you very much.